Church leaders, it goes without saying that 2020 was one of the most, if not the most challenging years we have ever faced. In addition to COVID-19 hitting us like a tsunami and radically altering everything about how we do ministry, we also had to lead congregations through the unprecedented polarization of racial tensions, the especially divisive 2020 presidential election, and surprisingly enough, COVID safety protocols. Life for many church leaders felt a lot like the middle ball in this Newton's cradle getting smashed from both sides. Navigating 2020 expended enormous energy, leaving many of us physically, mentally, emotionally, and spiritually exhausted. Now what? Given the year we've endured, it's natural to think that now is the perfect time to just rest. And while I definitely think every leader should engage in self-care and rest, I also think that we're currently in a brief season that offers an unprecedented opportunity to prepare for post-pandemic ministry. The God we serve has been known to bring light out of darkness, order out of chaos, and just might bring about a new season of growth and ministry out of one of the most difficult years of our lives. My name is Michael Turner with Pinnacle Leadership Associates, and in this video we're going to be talking about how to prepare for what God is going to do in the post-pandemic. The first key in preparing for post-pandemic ministry is this: we won't go back to the way things were. The pandemic didn't change the world so much as it accelerated some changes that were already taking place. The data could not be more clear that the Church of Jesus, at least in the United States, has been in decline for the past 4 decades. Early research shows that during this pandemic, as many as 1 in 5 active Christians have checked out of church participation altogether. In addition to losing people, church consultants have been telling us that worship attendance trends clearly show people to be physically present in worship a lot less frequently. Some of our strategies were failing far before the pandemic. While many in our congregations will have a strong sense of longing to return to those strategies and to return to the way things were before the pandemic, our job as leaders is to help them process and resist that urge. We can no longer afford to ignore the realities around us. It's past time to reimagine and reinvigorate our efforts. If you'd like to learn more about helping your congregation process their longing for the past, along with 4 other dynamics that are at work in every congregation right now, check out the link to the video created by my colleague Mark Tidsworth in the description below. That brings me to my second key idea, and that is there may never be an easier time to lead change in your congregation than right now. You may be thinking, wait, haven't things changed enough in the last year? Well, yes. But I'm going to guess that there are some innovations that you've wanted to lead your congregation to make for a while. You've just been wary of making those changes because of the tensions and conflict it will introduce into your congregational system. But the changes that were thrust upon us during the pandemic have actually created an expectation of more change. I mean, it's true that things won't go back to the way they were, but everybody knows that they won't stay exactly the way they are now either. Because of this, people will be more willing to change right now than under normal circumstances. I'll give you an example. The leadership of the congregation where I currently serve is taking this time to assess our Sunday morning schedule to determine if the worship times, styles, and number of services, along with our children's ministry offerings, are as optimized as they can be to accomplish our mission of making disciples of Jesus Christ for the transformation of the world. Under normal circumstances, even broaching the subject of changing worship schedules or of worship styles might be nuclear. But everyone knows that this is the season for evaluation and adjustment. Change is never easy, but given the vast changes that the last year has brought, people have sort of grown accustomed to it. Therefore, it might be the perfect time to do things like start a new worship service of a different style, experiment with starting new small groups for discipleship, or launch a new ministry endeavor. Whatever strategic changes have been marinating inside your mind will be easier to implement right now, maybe than ever. Which brings us to the third key idea, and that is maybe you need to change mindsets more than methods. Many churches do, in fact, need to try new methods, but most need a deeper, more substantive change in mindset. Now is the perfect time to start making that shift. As I mentioned earlier, the pandemic accelerated changes that have been taking place for a long time in our culture. Increasingly, communities in which our congregations are located are post-Christian. So we can no longer rely on societal pressure or cultural convention to grow the numbers of people in our churches. But frankly, the Great Commission of Jesus has never been about making members of our churches anyway. And don't get me wrong, the Apostle Paul likened the followers of Jesus to different members in the one body of Christ, like hands and feet. Unfortunately, consumer culture has morphed Paul's analogy of members of a body into the membership mentality of country clubs. In country clubs, membership has its privileges. You become a member to be served. Jesus, on the other hand, said, "I have not come to be served, but to serve, and give my life as a ransom for many." Furthermore, it's imperative that his last words become our first priority, to make disciples, to create fully devoted followers of Jesus, dedicated not to be serving is what disciples of Jesus do. Churches with a membership mentality are rapidly declining. The churches that are growing and making an impact focus instead on discipleship. Finally, make permanent the best parts of your pivot. Some of you watching this video had never live streamed your worship services before the massive shutdown of 2020. Some of you are like me and had never even heard of Zoom before last March. Now you likely have so many meetings, Bible studies, and small groups by Zoom that you've diagnosed yourself with Zoom fatigue. I'll be the first to admit that I look forward to the days when the various groups of which I'm a part will be able to meet in person without any COVID safety protocols. But I also know that the innovations of live streaming and digital Bible study and prayer groups have allowed us to reach people who would not have been able to be reached any other way. In my context, we routinely have people from all over the country participate in worship with us on Sundays, connecting with our congregation and participating in mission through their generosity. Some of our members report that they more frequently participate in worship online than they ever did in person. My own personal life group has actually seen an increase in participation because even when folks are traveling for work, they can zoom into our study and have prayer with us. I've also noticed that some of the guys in my group are more willing to be vulnerable and share now that we're meeting by Zoom than they were when we met in person. If all that's not enough, we recently received a new disciple into our faith family, even though she lives in another state. Having completed our 7-week introductory discipleship course by Zoom, she decided to officially join our church and is now serving alongside our Director of Discipleship and Connections. 13 months ago, none of that would have been possible. Our pandemic pivot blew apart the geographic limitations for us to be about the mission of Jesus in the world. We would be foolish to abandon the gains that we've made in that area, and you would too. Those are the 4 big ideas for preparing for the post-pandemic. But if you'd like to dig deeper, I'll be leading a course this fall called The 7 Keys for Making the Shift from Membership to Discipleship Culture. I'd love for you to join me. Also, you can sign up for the Pinnacle Leadership e-newsletter using the link in the description below. That way, you can always stay current on other resources to empower your leadership and your ministry.